back to another video on the channel. In this one, I'm reading the story of Martin Luther King Jr. by Kristen Platt. But before we start the video, I want to give you a big thanks to all of you that subscribed. We have actually hit, I'm pretty sure, 5,100 subscribers already. And it's only been like, what, 2 weeks? So I just want to thank you very much. I might be doing something in the future for it. I don't know. Neither do you. So, without further ado, let's begin reading the story of Martin Luther King Jr. Chapter 1, A King is Born. Meet Martin Luther King Jr. As a young boy, Martin Luther King Jr. wanted to be a fireman, then a doctor. He loved singing and even considered being a performer. But Martin never thought he'd be a civil rights leader. When Martin was born, the United States. The United States was a segregated country. Black and white citizens did almost everything separately. Their families often lived in different neighborhoods. Their children even went to different schools. Whenever they had to do things together, like ride the bus, black people were not treated fairly. Even as a child, Martin knew segregation was wrong. He believed everyone deserved to be treated equally. When Martin became an adult, he would help lead the civil rights movement to end segregation. How did Martin go from dreaming of being a fireman to giving his famous speech, "I have a dream"? How did Martin go from dreaming of being a fireman to giving his famous "I have a dream" speech? What inspired him to end segregation and fight for equality? Let's find out more about Martin's life and how he changed America. There was a pretty strict system of segregation in Atlanta. For a long time, I could not go swimming. Martin's America. Martin was born on January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. He was named after his father, Reverend Martin Luther King, Sir. I think that's what the SR means. A popular minister at Ebenezer, I'm going to try my best to say it, Ebenezer Baptist Church. Martin's mother, Alberta, trained as a school teacher. More than 60 years before Martin was born, slavery was illegal in the South. It was one of the main reasons that the Civil War began on April 12th of 1861, when Abraham Lincoln was president. The North wanted to end slavery and fought against the South. One of President Lincoln's goals was to end slavery once and for all. He did many things to make this happen, including signing the Emancipation Proclamation. The North won the Civil War, and slavery ended in 1865. The United States began its Reconstruction era. During this time, the Southern states created black codes and Jim Crow laws. These were rules that required black citizens to do most things separately from white citizens. Even if black workers did the same job as white workers, black workers were paid less. Over time, these laws became segregation laws, which was a form of racism. When Martin was born, segregation laws still existed, so he experienced racism in his life. Even as a child, Martin's first best friend was a white boy, but the boy's father told them they couldn't be friends anymore because Martin was black. Martin was confused. He told his mother, and she explained how things was how things were under and she explained that this was how things were under segregation. Martin felt very sad. He hoped segregation would end so he'd never have to lose another friend. Martin's childhood experiences of racism played a big role in the type of leader he would become. His life played a big role in the type of country America would become too. Chapter 2, The Early Years. Growing up in Atlanta, Martin grew up in a segregated neighborhood known as Sweet Auburn. It was one of the richest black communities in Atlanta. The King family had a beautiful home. Martin lived there with his grandparents and parents along with older sister Willie Christine and his younger brother Alfred Daniel. When the King children weren't outside at their family church, they played outside and spent time with their mother, Mrs. King. Mrs. King taught Martin and his siblings how to read and write. She also taught them how to play the piano. The family loved singing gospel songs together. As the son of a preacher, Martin spent a lot of time at the Ebenezer Baptist Church. Reverend King could be strict at times, but Martin admired his father. He was the person Martin saw fight back against racism. During his church sermons, Reverend King preached about the need to end segregation. He encouraged Martin and his siblings to do the same. "I don't care how long I will have to live with this system. I will never accept it." Reverend Martin Luther King, Sr. Following in Martin Sr.'s footsteps. From grade school to high school, Martin's teachers recognized that he was very bright. Martin even skipped a few grades and graduated from high school early, when he was only 15 years old. When he was only 15 years old, Martin enrolled in college. He also made time to play his family's favorite sport, like baseball and football. Martin was proud to be a student at Morehouse College, a historically black college for men. Several King men had attended Morehouse, including Martin's father and grandfather. At Morehouse, Martin decided to follow in his father's footsteps and become a minister. After graduating in 1948, Martin enrolled in Crozer Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania, to study religion. For the first time, Martin was attending a school that was mostly white. He was one of the 11 black students on the entire campus. Martin was worried that his white classmates wouldn't see him as equal. What if they thought he wasn't smart? But as soon as he saw how they respected him, Martin was even voted class president. During his studies at Crozer Seminary, Martin learned about several religious leaders. He came to admire the Indian leader Mahatma Gandhi. Martin liked Gandhi's nonviolent approach to social change. After graduating from Crozer in 1951, Martin moved to Massachusetts to study at the Boston University. Boston was a diverse city and did not have segregation laws. Students from different colleges often hung out together. That was how Martin met Coretta Scott, a student at the New England Conservatory of Music. They quickly fell in love and were married on June 18, 1953. In 1954, Martin was offered a job at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. He was excited to preach. He believed it was his calling, but Martin knew being a minister at this church wouldn't be easy. It was in Montgomery, Alabama, one of the most racist and segregated cities in the South. Chapter 3, Taking a Stand. Preaching for equality. Martin and Coretta decided he should accept the job. Even though life was better for black people in the North, black communities in the South needed his help. The moment Martin and Coretta arrived in Montgomery, they were reminded of the horrors of segregation. They had to drink water from separate water fountains again. They had to ride in the backs of buses and sometimes give up their seats to white passengers. But Martin could finally preach about equality. In May 1954, Martin gave his first sermon as minister at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. That same month, an important case was decided by the Supreme Court, the highest court in the United States. When a legal case is very difficult to decide, the Supreme Court steps in to make the decision. In the case Brown versus Board of Education, several black families argued that segregated public schools were unfair and unconstitutional. On May 14, 1954, the Supreme Court agreed. This historic ruling meant that all public schools had to be desegregated. Winning the right to attend the same schools as white students was just one of the many segregation battles in his sermons. Martin encouraged black residents in Montgomery to fight and end segregation, not just schools, but everywhere. This was especially important to Martin because on November 17, 1955, Coretta gave birth to their first child. Martin did not want his daughter Yolanda Denise to have to live through segregation. Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott. Under segregation, black people had to sit in the backs of city buses. If there were not enough seats, black passengers had to give up their seats to white passengers. But black people were tired of being treated unfairly. They started refusing to move. Often they were arrested. When Rosa Parks was arrested on December 1st, 1955 for refusing to give up her seat, the black residents of Montgomery decided to take a stand. Several of Montgomery's black leaders held a meeting. They decided to use Rosa Parks' arrest as a reason to boycott the city buses. Martin was asked to lead the Montgomery bus boycott. Even though he knew it would be dangerous, Martin accepted. On December 5th, 1955, black residents followed Martin's instructions. They refused to ride the city buses unless they were desegregated. Although the Montgomery bus boycott was difficult at times, it was a major success. Martin was thrilled that they had reached their goal without using violence. But there was still work to be done. The civil rights movement was just getting started. There would be more difficult times ahead for citizens working for equal rights. Chapter 4. Civil Rights and Sitins. Martin leads the way. The Montgomery bus boycott showed the power of peaceful protests against segregation. Soon they appeared throughout the South. In January 1957, Martin went to Atlanta for a meeting with Bayard Rustin, Ralph Abernathy, Fred Shuttlesworth, and other black leaders. They formed a Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or the SCLC, a civil rights organization. Martin was chosen as its president. The SCLC worked on other civil rights issues like voting. Their crusade for citizenship began in late 1957 to help register black voters. Martin went to a march in Washington, D.C. called the Prayer Pilgrimage for Freedom and gave a speech called Give Us the Ballot. In his speech, Martin told the crowd that black people were having trouble voting. He wanted to change that. Give us the ballot, and we will no longer have to worry the federal government about our basic rights. As the SCLC's president, Martin traveled a lot, but he returned to Montgomery often to be with his family. On October 23, 1957, Yolanda became a big sister when Martin Luther King III was born. Peaceful protests. In the late 1950s, Martin and other black citizens still faced big challenges. When 9 black students tried to integrate in all-white school in Little Rock, Arkansas, people tried to stop them. Things got so bad that the president had to call in the National Guard, part of the U.S. military, to keep the students safe. Soon after, Martin published his first book, Stride Toward Freedom, about the bus boycott. He celebrated with a book signing in New York, but something terrible happened. A stranger stabbed him with a letter opener. Luckily, Martin survived. For many years, Martin had wanted to visit India, but he had never had the time. After his stabbing, Martin decided to make time. In February 1959, Martin and Coretta traveled to India. Martin became even more inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's life and teachings. When the couple returned, Martin started planning more nonviolent protests. The Kings moved to Atlanta in 1960. Martin liked being closer to the SCLC's headquarters. The move also made it easier to spend time with his family. Martin was even able to serve as his father's co-pastor at Ebenezer, the same church as he attended as a boy. In Atlanta, Martin organized events like Sitins. Sitins were nonviolent protests where people refused to move from segregated areas. Throughout the South, sit-ins were popular, especially in shops and restaurants. Southern police officers knew Martin inspired others to protest. They tried to find reasons to arrest him. Once, he was put in a Georgia jail for driving with an Alabama license. Thankfully, a congressman named John F. Kennedy helped get Martin released. A few months later, Mr. Kennedy became the 35th President of the United States. In addition to sit-ins, Martin and his supporters participated in other nonviolent protests. They took freedom rides from the north to the south. They challenged segregated buses. They held civil rights marches in many cities. Despite being arrested and jailed many times, Martin refused to give up. He would continue to fight for equality. Chapter 5. Birmingham, we shall overcome. Birmingham boycott. In some places like Birmingham, Alabama, things were worse for black people than in other cities and states. In 1963, Alabama's new governor, George Wallace, made it known he did not want segregation to end. Birmingham's Commissioner of Public Safety, Eugene Bull Connor, declared that he didn't care if protests were peaceful. He would order police to use violence. When Commissioner Connor heard the SCLC planned to come to Birmingham, he was furious. He made it illegal for Martin to protest there. Martin knew he risked being arrested and jailed, but he decided to protest anyway. He knew it was the right thing to do. Birmingham's black residents were excited Martin was coming. Hundreds of people planned to boycott white businesses. Teenagers and children planned a march called the Children's Crusade. But as they prepared for a peaceful protest, Commissioner Connor ordered police to spray the crowd with fire hoses. Police dogs attacked the protesters too. Many protesters were arrested along with Martin, including some of the young people from the Children's Crusade. As Martin sat in jail, he wrote a letter about how bad things were in the South. Martin's words were powerful. Despite what happened, he still did not believe in responding to violence with violence. His letter was read on national television. More people started to realize the need for change. Martin's letter from Birmingham jail is one of the most famous writings. Change for Birmingham. The Birmingham campaign began on April 3rd and lasted for over a month. Martin and his supporters refused to give up. The protest ended on May 10th after Birmingham's business leaders agreed to end segregation. The Birmingham campaign showed America how bad racism was in the South. When the campaign finally ended, many former whites-only businesses had their first black customers. In June 1963, segregation signs, like those that read "Whites Only" and "No Colored," began to be removed. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The Birmingham campaign was a success for the civil rights movement. Martin and his supporters believed it was time to push for change in one of the most important cities in the nation, Washington, D.C. Chapter 6. Martin has a dream. Marching on Washington, D.C. Martin knew he had support in Washington. John F. Kennedy, the man who would help him get released from jail, was now the President of the United States. President Kennedy also believed in equality. On June 11, 1963, he gave a powerful speech about the violence that had happened in Birmingham. A few months before, President Kennedy encouraged all citizens to work together to bring about change. On June 19th, President Kennedy introduced a new civil rights bill to Congress. If passed, the law would end segregation in public places like schools and restaurants forever. Martin's effort to promote this bill would lead to his most famous speech. Martin worked with other leaders to plan an event called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Many people helped plan the march, but Martin worked closely with 5 other leaders together. They were called the Big Six. And here are all the people. This is Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, A. Philip Randolph, Roy Wilkins, James Farmer, and Whitney Young. On June 22nd, 1963, the Big Six met with President Kennedy to discuss their plans. They promised the event would be nonviolent. President Kennedy gave his support, and the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom was scheduled for August 28th, 1963. It ought to be possible for every American to enjoy the privileges of being American without regard to his race or his color. President Kennedy. Over 250,000 people came in support of the March on Washington. Around 80,000 of these supporters were white people. Strangers linked arms as they marched and sang together. It was the largest showing of racial unity America had ever seen. After several people gave performances and speeches, Martin addressed the audience. He shared with them his speeches for America. Martin's I Have a Dream speech is one of the most quoted speeches in the world. The March on Washington ended as the crowd sang the anthem of the Civil Rights Movement. We shall overcome. The time for change has come. One day, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with the little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. Change for America. Sadly, President Kennedy died before seeing the rewards of his work. When he was assassinated on November 22, 1963, the nation mourned. On July 2, 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Bill of 1964, honoring President Kennedy. After the tireless work of many civil rights leaders and their supporters, segregation had ended in the United States. Martin was proud and thankful. On October 14, 1964, Martin was awarded the prestigious Nobel Peace Prize. At 36 years old, he is among the youngest people to ever win the prize. But Martin's work wasn't finished just yet. There was still a lot more he wanted to do for himself and the nation. So that's the end of this book. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye! Also, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day! Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel, give a like, and hit the notification bell for more updates. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!